Welcome to Inside Outside Innovation, episode 77. This week, Josh was joined by Renata Policicio to discuss the work she's been doing as the VP of Fan and Media Intelligence at ESPN. Renata specializes in global markets, so their conversation focused on findings they gathered from Latin America, including Brazil and Argentina. From dropped cameras to quantitative data, Renata walked through the research process, as well as how this data is incorporated into ESPN's actions going forward. Hi everyone, I'm Victory Clafter, the producer of Inside Outside Innovation. This is the podcast that brings you the latest insights from people who know the most about building lean businesses, innovating within corporations, and disrupting entire industries with passion and precision.
So you've been in this industry for, like you said, 15 years. Technology has come a long way in terms of how fans engage with sports. What are some of the things that have most intrigued you with how people are interacting with their favorite sports and teams today?
Well, in 15 years, a lot has happened. If you compare my first day working with media and today, absolutely different times. I think mobile, if I will say one specific thing that really reshaped the way we consume content today and our fans consume sports specifically is really mobile. Mobile has turned it to be the go-to platform. If you want to check a score, if you want to check news about your favorite team or your favorite sport, and now more than ever, even if you want to watch a game or watch a match, you can stream it online. So it's mobile has turned it to be a microcomputer and a micro media center where you have everything from news to really watching a long form game of your favorite team, especially when you're not at home. So if I needed to give you one specific thing that reshaped everything, it would be mobile.
Now we're excited, Renata, you're going to be at the back end of innovation, BEI sessions, and you're going to be talking about a new study that was done called the New Living Room. Could you tell us a little bit more about what this extremely comprehensive research project did and some of the things that you uncovered?
Sure. This study happened in Latin America, so in Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia. And what we really wanted was to understand with this study really the new media and sports consumption environment in light of all this new technology. So we wanted to identify potential opportunities for us and always having in mind the power of the live sports experience. That's really what drives the sports consumption today, but technology has been changing that a lot. So that was our main objective with the New Living Room. The name, this study in Latin America was inspired by three waves of the very same study done here in the U.S. So we were deeply inspired by them. And the core objective of the whole living room series is really to understand how people's living rooms are evolving from traditional living rooms to cell phones, computers, and video games, for example.
So, Renata, how do you go about gathering that information? I mean, what are some of the most effective ways to actually get in and observe some of those changes in behavior?
There are many different ways. For this study specifically, we had three phases, three stages that we call. The first one was about exploring the context. So we talked to 7 experts in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. So sports journalists, marketers, technology experts, read a lot of publications. So really trying to understand the context before really going to the field and talking to fans. Then we did qual and quant studies in the 3 markets, in now including Colombia as well. So we did focus groups with sports fans and a comprehensive quantitative survey in the 4 markets. But we also wanted to feel that live experience with the fans. So the third stage is what we call living the live experience, or flash interviews, as we call them. So we really went and experienced live events, in the case of Latin America, soccer matches in the stadiums, in Brazil, in Mexico, and in Argentina. So we went to the field and really felt the game experience live with the fans.
And I love that that's your job. You get paid to go have fun at these events, right? And that's what
Yes,
you're
I'm
telling me,
very
that I need
lucky.
to be a researcher here, is what you're saying.
I'm lucky. I'm extremely lucky. Yes, you're right. But and it's my passion. So for me, I'm lucky. You're right.
That's very good. Do you have any interesting stories or fun things that you learned when you were doing some of those live events and getting in there into the football matches?
I'm not sure if you have ever been in a soccer match in
Hmm.
any country in Latin America, or anyone who is listening to us, but it's an amazing experience in a way that in the three markets where we went to, fans are extremely passionate about their teams, about soccer, and really it's a passion. So they jump, they will sing, they really cheer there. And you can imagine us, and we are not only with them, but we were trying to record video with them. So in the middle of goals and in the middle of the matches, cameras were dropped, microphones were dropped. That was all part of not only the fun but the experience. It's part of the live, the heat, the really what live sports produce in us, and really being with the fans. With the small accidents aside, it was really an amazing experience.
Oh, it's definitely otherworldly than what we have here in the US. And I've been to some matches in
Absolutely.
Colombia and Mexico and just Germany a couple of weeks ago, some Bundesliga matches. But it's very different in
It
terms
is.
of the feel.
The passion is different. You can feel it. It's different. Yes.
So when you gather this information, you get new insights out of this information. What does an organization like ESPN do, or any other place that you've worked with in the past? How is this valuable to them, and how does it change how they approach serving their customers?
It really helps us in so many ways, from really understanding how our fans connect with the content that we provide, in what moments of their day, and what devices that evolve. So just to give you one example, we wanted to really understand what the role of television was in this new, given all this new technology. So considering the live experience and all this passion that fans have with ESPN and with sports, what is the role of TV? So we understood that they expect TV to be an organizer, really set the agenda, bring expertise, bring in depth information. But at the same time, both before and after the game, other platforms, other devices came into the game. So before, just to give you a couple of examples, mobile, as I mentioned, super strong. Fans want to look for news, for formations, for statistics, just to warm up before the match. And after, they want to go deeper, check analysis. If there was any polemic or controversial play, they want to replay that. They may want to see best moments again, debates, and that can happen on TV, but also on PC and sometimes on mobile. So we wanted to understand how these different devices connect to fans in different moments, so we can really produce content that will speak to what the new fans, the new generations expect from us and want to consume in terms of sports.
That's very interesting. I can only imagine all the different user journey maps and other things that you probably have in terms of how people use things and videos. And I'm sure it was a very in-depth, especially when you think of something like consuming sports and all the emotions that come around it. It's fun. This is the geeky side of me. It's fun to think about some of the science behind it and exactly what's going on in the brains and in our subconscious in terms of how people emotionally respond to the things that they're seeing in sports.
Yeah, and how things are changing. We found with our quantitative that around 75% of sports fans, and I'm talking, it's an average of the four Latin American markets that we investigated, but around 75%, so three in each four fans have watched at least one sport event online in the last 2 weeks. So that's growing. There's a lot of infrastructure issues in Latin America that will, make this the streaming and the massive adoption will hold it back a little bit, but it's getting closer and closer to being a reality for them. Around 85% of Latin American fans said that they are very familiar with the streaming services, and 75% said they have used it to stream or to watch a game in the last few weeks. So technology is really changing the way people consume, and this emotional connection is very attached to that.
Absolutely. Doing a little bit of digging in before our conversation, I saw that you were involved in a study on emotionology and working with neuroscientists and MRI scans. And it was around this fascinating field of neuromarketing. What is that, and how does that connect to what we've been talking about how people consume?
A lot. Emotionology had back then really the objective of understanding emotions that people feel when they watch TV. So on that study was about TV and mainly entertainment content, and it has everything to do with this study as well. It did not use neuroscience for this study, but it has a lot to do. We identified really the emotional fields, what we call the emotional fields that play a role into sports. So what are, in terms of emotions, what people feel, and more than that, what they're expecting emotionally from a sports experience. So it has a lot to do with emotionology. I'm passionate about consumer experience and the whole neuromarketing, neuroscience side of that is so rich.
So, Renata, you're going to be talking here in Orlando in October about the new living room study. What's next from you? Well, what else is intriguing you and got you curious that you're going to be working on in the coming years?
We will continue to probably focus our research and insight projects in this, what we call the sports generations, really understanding more and more how the new generations and how the evolution of what we call sports fandom is happening. So really, what's probably coming next is understanding the factors that build and that sustain fandom for sports. We are very interested in studying esports as well. So e-gaming and esports is part of our strategy coming in the future. We will be investing in fantasy, so that is for us super important to understand the new generations and how they interact with these sports and fantasy games. So this not only the millennials, but even before the millennials, Generation Zs will be definitely a focus of our attention in the next months or years to come.
Interesting. So a number of our other listeners in maybe more traditional corporate innovation groups are always curious about what role market research or consumer research should play and when it should play it. How does the work that you are doing help inform like some of ESPN's strategies? I mean, you're just hitting upon things that are way more cutting edge in terms of e-games or really mainstream fantasy leagues or other pieces. How does what you get to work on help inform some of the direction of an organization like ESPN?
I'll give you one example. I mentioned fantasy and you mentioned fantasy. We will be have plans of launching fantasy leagues outside of the U.S., so some markets in Latin America, some markets in Europe, and maybe in Asia. I'm super involved in understanding what fans expect from fantasy leagues and ESPN in those markets. I'm not sure how familiar you and the listeners are with international markets, but I can tell you what a fan expects in Argentina is very different from what a fan expects in India. So in Argentina, it's all about soccer, about Argentine players, while in India, it will be about cricket. So it may be the same product, but we need a lot of twisting to really talk to different cultures and different fans. So even within Latin America, to give you one example, when you may think Brazil and Argentina are both passionate about soccer, they are, but even between two markets that have similar sports culture, we need to understand what fans expect, what is the context to really build the product and provide the best experience to fans. So research and insights in this project really come in the very beginning of planning. We have been talking to fans locally on the ground to really understand what they expect, how they see the products that they have available today, what they would expect from a new product or what they would value more in a new product. So we come in the very beginning planning stages of a project like that. But at the same time, sometimes we are involved after a concept was born. So sometimes our newsrooms will come with a different concept of a show, and we go and talk to the fans to understand if that show will be appealing or if there's always the specifics that we need to consider to make that show a hit. So we are involved, I want to say, during the whole life stage of our content, from planning to testing, even after a show airs, to give you one example.
That's very intriguing. Thinking about even some of those nuances, for instance, in like South America, can you give me an example? What's something that Brazilian sports fans might appreciate or do differently, or versus Argentine sports fans? It's something that you would have to take into consideration that the normal average person like me probably wouldn't appreciate the nuances that you've gone into to truly understand how they appreciate and consume.
Absolutely. Brazilians are more interested than Argentinians. Not that Argentinians are not, but Brazilians are more interested in international leagues like the English Premier League or the German Bundesliga than Argentines. Argentinians will be interested if there is an Argentinian playing there in that league. So the Spanish league, La Liga, will be more relevant in Argentina than English Premier League, for example, because there are Argentinian players playing. In Brazil, they are crazy about Brazilian soccer for sure, but they will also appreciate English soccer, even if there's no Brazilian star playing there. So these details that are not minor details for us, it's super relevant for us to program and really to deliver the most relevant experience to our fans. In Argentina, I think they're more patriot in a way that they want to see Argentines locally in the Argentinian league, but also in the European league. Brazilians will like to consume good soccer, even if a Brazilian is not directly involved.
Interesting. Good example. Renata, do you yourself participate in any sports, whether virtual, fantasy, or physical?
Yes, I run, I go to the gym, and I do participate in our football fantasy. We even have a research football fantasy here with ESPN. It's very nerd, but we will bet in ratings. We will estimate how many people will watch every game, and it's our own fantasy game within the research team. But
that's great.
But I also participate in the regular football fantasy league as well.
Good. That's good. R&D fantasy. Anything that any innovation team can aspire to. I love it.
That's the end of another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. Thanks for listening. Take a minute and reach out to us on Twitter at the IO Podcast and let us know if there's a topic or industry you'd like us to cover. Learn more about our team at insideoutside.io or econic.co. Until next time, go out and innovate.